Nick, thank you for a thorough report. We appreciate you being here. At this time, it's the next item on the agenda is public comment for agenda items only. The meeting will now be open for public comment, 3 minutes per person. If your questions pertain to litigation, student, or personnel items, please see the superintendent after the meeting, as the board does not discuss these matters in public. Depending on the nature and complexity of your questions, the board secretary may ask for your contact information so that someone can get back to you with a response. Reminder, please, may we have your name and address, and you direct the comments to the board. It's a comment period of the agenda and agenda items only. Thank you.
All right. Hi, my name is Heather, and I'm from Hamilton. And it feels like I've known some of you guys for a long time now. I'm back here again tonight, and it's been kind of a 3-year almost, I think, journey to get us here. And now we're standing on the brink of you guys doing something amazing. Passing a transgender protection policy years in the making. About a month ago, you presented that policy. It provided the needed protections for these kids, and I was so happy to see you guys considering it and see it pass its first reading. Unfortunately, in the last month, a few things have been added and subtracted that have negatively affected that policy. But first, I want to emphasize the good stuff. Not forcing these kids to use their dead names on school records will make their adult lives so much easier. And providing terminology and guidance to the staff is really extremely helpful and needed. But there are a few negatives that have cropped up. And what feels to me the most egregious of these is the possibility of outing these kids to their parents. If someone's out at school and not out at home, there's a reason for that. In the past few years, we've seen some fairly shameful behavior from those who have opposed this policy, like repeatedly calling trans women boys or mumbling even worse things under their breath. I can only imagine if one of those people had a trans kid. Something as simple as denying their basic existence can cause real lasting damage. And there's no way to completely know the implicit biases a parent might have, but the best one to judge that is the child themselves. My other concern is the language has gotten a little vague. Statements like will or shall have been changed to may, or on a case-by-case basis. It's great that you may do something, but that also leaves open the possibility of not doing something. Now, we know the school administration has been following the spirit of the state guidelines in absence of a formal policy. And I'm not here suggesting the administration is going to turn into some monster and start outing kids. But the future isn't guaranteed for any of us. Administrations change, and people can be replaced with those who may take those maybes and possibilities and do nothing, which makes this not a formal policy, but a suggestion with no real power behind it. So I urge you tonight, vote on the policy from a month ago. Take this moment to be a hero, because for most of us, those moments don't come along that often. Now, you know, Mr. Price maybe gets to pull people out of burning cars on occasion, but for the rest of us, we don't get that opportunity. So thank you for considering this, and hopefully we'll see the original policy passed tonight.
Thank you. Next, please. Welcome,
Miko Lukier, 24 Westover Circle, graduate of EHT in 2011. Kind of echoing a bit of what Heather said, the policy tonight is okay. The policy that was originally proposed was ideal. Maybe not even ideal, but it was a much better policy than what we have now. Just a little personal story, and I'll try to keep my comments brief. When I was, so as I said in a previous meeting, I'm gay. And when I came out to my mom on my own terms. I was the one who had that conversation with her. It went as well as I could have hoped. But I didn't get the opportunity to come out to my dad. My brother outed me to my dad. And that's something that really struck me because it sort of took away my own agency. It took away something that was like my decision. And to be honest, it permanently damaged my relationship with my brother and risks damaging my relationship with my father. It's something that you should also keep in mind, because if there is a circumstance where a student ends up being outed by, the school district to their parents, then that's going to harm the relationship with the school district. That's going to forever, force this discomfort on that student in being there, being a part of that institution. So I just hope that you're going to bear that in mind, and closing my statements, I hope that the board is looking forward to a quieter meeting this time around. I hope that the board is looking forward to a quick meeting this time around. Maybe not. I hope that the board, more than anything, I hope that the board is looking forward to a kind meeting tonight. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lucian Clark, and I'm from Runnymede. I'm going to start my statement with some opening words from a dear friend of mine, Stephanie Mott, who was an activist I was lucky to know while she was still alive. She was a transgender Christian woman who started the organization Kansas Statewide Education Project. If God created any of us, God created me too. Created me as a transgender human being. Who is anyone to tell me that God didn't do that? The question of dark religiousness is, do you think God made a mistake? My response is, no, I don't. Do you? I'm currently 28 years old, and I've watched my rights, protections, and identity be a bargaining chip for my entire life. When I lived in Manhattan, Kansas, where I met Stephanie, I watched an anti-discrimination ordinance that included sexual orientation and gender identity be passed and then 3 months later revoked before it could even become a law. It took 5 years before those protections were put in place again. I was 20 years old at the time, and there has been a recurring theme of my whole life where transgender people have been used as a bargaining chip, as something to be removed and added as needed to pass a statement. 20 years ago, when I first announced my discomfort with my assigned gender. 12 years ago, when I was in high school, I was finally comfortable enough to decide exploring that. And the first place I did that was my school. I did not come out to my parents at first. The first people who knew were some trusted teachers and my guidance counselor. I worked with my guidance counselor and my teachers to create a policy, to help create a statement, work out how I would come out on my own terms. It wasn't perfect when I was in high school. We didn't have a GSA or any way for me to transition in school. There wasn't talk of policies protecting me or students like me. I also wasn't quite ready to make that jump. I didn't have a name I was comfortable with, and I had already experienced extensive bullying due to my being queer. Yet I confided my concerns, problems, and overall frustrations with the staff, students, and other members of the facility with trusted friends and adults within the school. Trans students are one of the most vulnerable populations within a school and also one of the smallest. Research and the students themselves show that the best way to support them is through direct and active staff support, peer support groups such as GSAs, and policies that are binding and allow the students a clear approach if their needs are not met. This does not mean language of may or has, it requires language of has and must. Just like any other student, the vocal support of both staff and peers in the system is important for not only the learning environment, but the overall health and well-being of the students. Egg Harbor Township Board of Education believes that a school culture that supports student achievement, respects the values of all students, and fosters understanding of gender identity and expression within school communities promotes a safe learning environment. The language and blatant exclusion in this edited policy go directly against the very opening statement that is included in this edited policy. It is impossible to support student achievement and respect students and provide a safe learning environment that removes the very things that promote just that. The original policy allows for the bare minimum of support for trans students and respecting their
Your time is
safety.
up, so please finish your sentence.
The original policy allows for the bare minimum support for trans students and respecting their safety. The edited policy is not one that does that. It removes and guts out the very things that I mentioned support these
All right,
students.
thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Lori Green. I've been here before too, and I want to echo both Heather and Mike's. I'm just so happy to see that this policy has moved somewhere. I just want to thank everybody in this community for what I know is difficult work when we don't understand things. I'm here representing the Stockton State College Youth LGBT Safe Space, which is set up precisely for this purpose of trying to educate and provide the best services for youth who are vulnerable in our community. I'm also here as a board member of the LGBT Alliance in Atlantic City. I'd like to say that privacy and confidentiality are critically important for transgender students who do not have supportive families. In those situations, even inadvertent disclosures can put the student in a potentially dangerous situation at home. So it's important to have a plan in place to help avoid any mistakes and slip-ups. Unsupportive parents and caregivers, unfortunately, transgender youth experience high levels of family rejection. Lack of family support can have a detrimental effect on their short and long-term mental health and well-being. Research on family rejection of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans youth has shown that high levels of parental pressure to try to change an adolescent's gender expression to enforce gender conformity is related to high levels of depression. A nearly 4 times greater likelihood of attempted suicide and illegal drug use, and being more than twice as likely to put oneself at high risk for HIV. These findings are also applicable to transgender youth who also experience high rates of family rejection for the same reasons, namely their inability to conform to stereotypes associated with their sex assigned at birth. Schools can play a critical role in alleviating the psychological distress caused by family rejection. The school environment can be the only place a transgender student feels safe enough to be themselves. Having a safe place to learn is just as important, if not more so, for transgender students who don't have supportive parents. It's as if those who do have them. Just as a matter of statistics, 40%, actually in New Jersey it's higher, it's 56% of homeless youth are LGBTQ. 43% of those report being forced out by parents, and another 46 of those were left because of rejection or parental abuse. That makes 89% of those homeless LGBTQ youth that left because of their parents, because they were not supportive. 45% of trans young people experience parental rejection and have attempted suicide in the state of New Jersey. Unfortunately, 10% of those have succeeded. Thank you. 90% of our trans youth nationwide reported feeling unsafe even at school, and 55% physically harassed at school, while 81% reported being sexually harassed at school. Because of this, yes, I thank you. Because of this, I think it's really important that we remember this is not a can, it's not a can, but it's a must situation for this document. You're welcome.
Just want to, at this time, I just want to announce that I am going to limit the number to the last person in line. There is an opportunity at the end of the agenda for more public comment. So and that will be the last person at this particular time, all right? Yes, sir, go ahead.
Good evening, my name is John Servin. I live on Tremont Avenue in Egg Harbor Township. I've been at every single meeting in regards to the transgender debate since 3 years ago. Every single meeting, sometimes I've spoken, I'll see from the ones that have been passed down from the state level to the one that was initially proposed to the one that was modified. And myself, I'm a family guy. I got 2 little boys, Elliot and Miles. And Miles is a cute little chunker, he's got rolls for days. And I got Elliot, who will steal every microphone and just start babbling into it. That being said, I studied psychology in college, and what they will tell you over and over again, whether it's Freud, Allen, Alder, I mean, you can look through all the different psychologists. What they will say is, they will say that the #1 formational aspect in a child's life is parents. The policy has been changed. Well, the wording, and that's my problem. The wording has been changed, but the meaning still remains true. Where what they say is that they say that may, at the discretion of leadership, will tell the parents of the students having this. And the problem that I have with that is that what are the parameters, what are the circumstances that determine whether or not it is told? Is it just up to one person to determine, oh, this one yes, that one no? What are the concrete things that are in that document that will determine whether or not a student's parent is told? Because what will happen in reality is that it says may be told. You may tell the parents, but we all know what's going to happen there is that due to liability concerns, you will never tell the parents. We all know this. We all know it. And that's my issue, is that there's no concrete stipulations there determining on which cases get put back to the parents. Parents are the #1 formational aspect in children. And that's the reason why I believe they need to be included. Because the second that we are allowing children to be deceitful to their parents, it will end up causing issues later on in life. We can prove this through many different studies, whether it's the economic mobility study done by the Pew Research. I mean, there's so many different areas that we can talk through, and I don't have time to talk through it. But my concern is this: I do not believe this policy is ready to be passed because myself as a parent, I'm getting cut out of the survey. I'm getting cut out. And there is no stipulations protecting me. Where's my right to be a parent? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Hoskins. I live on Saratoga Road in Egg Harbor Township. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for serving on the school board. I served on the school board once, and I know that each and every one of you are dedicated to the well-being and education of the children. And I was here for the last meeting when the proposal was defeated. As I understand, back then, it was just basically on the bathroom issue. It wasn't anything about curriculum, all these other things. Since then, we had a change of administration. If anyone that is up here that says there's no politics involved, they know that's not true. So I have a heart for everybody here, no matter what. My grandson came out. I wasn't going to tell this part of the story, but I heard these others, and it brought almost tears to my eyes. I remember my grandson came out as being homosexual. We loved him. We put our arms around him. Now, we didn't agree with his lifestyle. Everyone here that don't agree with someone's lifestyle, you're a hater. That is a lie, and that's not true. You can still love, but you don't have to agree. But you still have to respect. That's the ultimate thing. Now, what I would say to you guys, we've been hearing a lot about quid pro quo in the news, right? We also been hearing about bribery and all kinds of other things. What is it when the state of New Jersey says to this school board, you adhere to this policy or you lose your money? That's quid pro quo, okay? So what I'm saying to your board members, if down in your hearts, you really think, you really believe you want to vote against this policy, but there's a powerful temptation, well, gee, we're going to lose a lot of bucks. You do what you think is right in your heart. And I would tell you, and I wouldn't lie to you, if I was in your place tonight, I'd be worried about losing that kind of money from the state, okay? However, in the end, I would have to decline it. If they're going to dictate to the local school board, the local community, to take the rights away from parents, to put an agenda out that a lot of parents don't agree with. Now, if you took a vote, and I don't want to demean anyone that's here, because I think everyone should be protected in the school system, and you can't really legislate that. That's the thing of the heart. If your heart is to love, you love regardless of any of all those things, all right? So if you're in a position of power, you have to do the right thing. And I think if you went to the parents and presented it, they might say, I don't want my kid with this certain curriculum shoved down their throat, because if I came in here as a Christian and says, I want everyone to have to learn Christianity and that's it. This is what you're going to learn, like it or not. Everyone scream separation of church and state. Okay? Now where's it going now? You either accept it or you lose the money. All right? So I would say, for my heart, you do what's right in your hearts. You ask yourself, as a parent, what do you want? Thank you, and God bless you all.
The lady in the green scarf will be the last speaker at this time, please. The other folks can speak at the end of it. There's an opportunity at the end of the meeting for you to speak, sir.
I'm going to speak now, sir. I'm a taxpayer in the city, and I have children in.
I have the right to give. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Diane. I am Diane Green, Olivia Drive, Egg Harbor Township. And I have a few issues here. The first one is I want to say those videos that you showed over there, I love them. That's what the schools should be all about, education, advancing these kids. Let's stop talking about other type of agendas to get somebody's way when you're not comfortable. This is supposed to be an education time for these kids. We've got to prepare them to be adults, to be the doctors, to be nurses, to be whatever, to take care of their families. Okay, so that's the first issue. The second issue is, I want you to know, we do not hate. Christians do not hate. What we do hate, though, is sin. Is sin, and this is sin. Any wrongdoing is sin, and God is against this. It's abomination. So that's what we are against. Third issue is the meaning of parenting.
Please do not speak out, folks. This lady has the time to
The meaning of parenting
it is quoted as, "It is the process of promoting, supporting the physical, emotional, social, and intellectual development of a child from infancy to adulthood." Now, the parents who are raising their children with good values and intentions are being subjected, losing their rights in parenting. So on behalf of the majority, please don't allow this minority, the squeaky wheel, if you will, change our basic fundamental desire of rearing a loving, well-adjusted, educated family. Fourth, this is the final. On UTIs, 2 years ago, it was brought up on the UTIs that many children were going home with bladder infections. Well, let me tell you something about bladder infections. These are ways you could get bladder infections: drinking alcohol, using birth control devices, having sex, bad hygiene, consuming too much sugar, both by eating and drinking, and not drinking enough water. The medical site that I looked into said this: it takes the body 9 to 10 hours to produce 2 cups of urine. That's about as long as you can wait and still be in the safe zone without the possibility of harming your organs. And this is my last final thought. I pray that you will pray to God and ask for His wisdom and His agenda and His mercy and His guidance on all that comes before you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Meeting members of the board, today again, Dave Sonny, 28 Bobler. I have 3 children in the school district. I wanted to address some of the specific points that I feel are redundant within this transgender policy that should apply to all the students. The board is committed to respecting the values of students, period. It doesn't matter if you're transgender or not. Promotes a safe learning environment, period. It doesn't matter if you're transgender or not. Fosters understanding of general identity and expression. I agree. I don't think we should harbor any ill will or feelings or bully or intimidate any student for any reason, regardless of transgender or for any reason. With regards to the student approach, student-centered approach, based on the age, grade, and maturity, doesn't matter. If they're a minor, they're a minor. It's my responsibility. I'm their guardian. I determine how they react or interact in a public school setting. With regards to the activities, it's funny that you cited the young woman that came in 6th place in the state. I wonder if she would have done that had she been competing against males in the same race. You referenced the Powerpuff game coming up. I wonder if these young ladies would be excited if they had to tackle somebody of my physique, or how their parents would feel if somebody of my physique was tackling their daughter. Real quick, I want to read to you something straight out of WebMD regarding gender dysphoria. Feeling that your body does not reflect your true gender. Your true gender can cause severe distress, anxiety, and depression. Dysphoria is a feeling of dissatisfaction, anxiety, and restlessness. With gender dysphoria, the discomfort with your male or female body can become so intense that it can interfere with your normal life, for instance, at school or work or during social activities. Treatment. The goal is not to change how the person feels about his or her gender. Instead, the goal is to deal with the feelings of distress. Talking with a psychologist or a psychiatrist is part of a treatment for gender dysphoria. Therapy is one way to address the mental health issues with this condition. Beyond therapy, many people choose to take at least some steps to bring their physical appearance in line with how they feel inside. They might change the way they dress or go by a different name. They may also take medication or surgery to change their appearance. There is no amount of drugs or chemicals or hormones that will change a male to a female. Yeah. Suicide rate pre and post transition is 19 times. It does not change. This is a mental health issue. Yes.
Thank you,
These
sir.
people need to deal with the distress.
Thank you.
There's a biological privacy right that all females and males is being ignored here. Many have spoken out across the country. to
You're
combat
done.
these policies.
So you're done.
North Carolina for privacy.
And you're done.
GG versus Boston County.
Time's up!
Denver versus Boyertown, many others.
Compared to the other
No
speakers.
different.
will follow
No,
suit.
3 minutes. I don't get it.
Let's please remain within our time limits, please. Thank you.
My name is Joseph Mandis, I'm from Brigantine. Good evening, I'm here to speak for a trans friend of mine who was not able to attend the school board meeting tonight. While they wanted to be here today, they were not able to due to the horrifying transphobia that transpired at the last meeting and could not guarantee their own safety at this meeting. They have asked me to read their message. I grew up in a similar small town environment outside of Buffalo, New York, which prided itself on the fact that it was a small town with Christian values. Unfortunately, when I reached middle school and high school, the small town and Christian values became synonymous with violence and intolerance towards the LGBT community. The violence came out in so many ways from the student body, the administration, and the teachers. It was truly insidious. There were no protections for LGBTQ students, and it often appeared that the administration openly allowed intolerance and violence. Students got beaten on several occasions in the bathrooms and the locker rooms over their gay and trans identity, and teachers either didn't report it, or when they did, the administration brushed it under the rug. I witnessed more instances than I could count, where students were bullied mercilessly over the identity by other students in view of teachers, and the perpetrators usually received a slap on the wrist. In our government classes, we had structured a class time devoted to debating the fundamental human rights of LGBTQ people. In health classes, when we reached the sexual education portion, the teachers and students openly mocked gay and trans people. I could go on forever about the institutional discrimination that the school district propagated. Ultimately, what ended up happening because of the school culture and lack of protections were in place for LGBT students, which was upwards of 15% at this school. LGBTQ students developed higher rates of depression, drug abuse, and suicide attempts. I watched as my queer friends, including myself, descended into drug abuse and suicidal ideation. Some tried to kill themselves. 2 of my queer friends died shortly after high school. I can't help but to think they would both be alive today if they had a school environment that had protected them and was supportive of them. The resistance being shown to honoring the state requirements for trans inclusion, including the gutting the original language, is not only shameful, but will only serve to hurt queer children. What this is truly about, children. The revised policy will allow school district to out queer children to their families, which has serious ethical and safety concerns for children who experience abuse at the hands of homophobic, transphobic parents, along with familial alienation, which leads to an increased risk of suicide, maladaptive coping mechanisms. You have a choice to make right now. Are you going to choose to protect trans and queer students, or will you let ignorance and bigotry take over?
Thank you, sir.
Franklin Lane, Egg Harbor Township, my 13-year-old daughter goes here. Scholarships are extremely competitive and difficult to obtain, and now you are making our daughters compete unfairly against males, not just for scholarships, but also just be able to step on the field and play. These are the building blocks of our daughters' lives, and as a country, we have been busting down walls placed in front of women, and now you are adding to those walls. Allowing biological males to play female sports is defeating the goal of an equal playing field. Federal law, as well as our teachers, coaches, and parents, are supposed to protect. Many female athletes who have compete against males will be deprived of sports scholarships to colleges, as I previously stated, which is already extremely competitive. At present, several transgender women are dominating against biological female competition. At the high school level, 2 biological males have combined to win 15 Connecticut State Championships since 2017, while competing against biological females. In the NCAA, Franklin Pierce University track star CC Telfer, biological male, has won national championships and set records while competing against biological females. There are many more examples, but short on time. Study conducted by the Karolinska Institute, a medical university in Sweden, and Lushimsky University, a university in Sweden, showed that biological males, transgender women, who took a full year of hormone therapy still had muscle mass and strength advantages. The medical study conclusion, despite the robust increases in muscle mass and strength in women transitioning to men, and men transitioning to women were still stronger and had more muscle mass following just 12 months of treatment. Another study, Journal of Medical Ethics in June, found that male athletes who identify as transgender women have an intolerable advantage over their female competitors. Even after suppressing testosterone levels, giving hormone therapy to children for the purpose of gender identity confusion could possibly have permanent damaging effects later on in life. Hormone therapy will not alter bone structure, lung volume, or heart size of the trans woman athlete, especially if she transitions post-puberty. So natural advantages including joint alteration, stroke volume, and maximal oxygen uptake will be maintained. Just imagine what these hormone testosterone experiments will have on our children as they grow into adulthood. Lastly, I would like to quickly respond to a few of you Christians that sat up here during the first reading. As you make decisions on the board, you have to leave your Christian beliefs at home. Christians never leave Jesus at home or out of decisions to avoid conflict. Jesus does not conform to us, we conform to Jesus.
My name is Michael Heath from Egg Harbor Township. I had 5 children that went through the school system. I now have grandkids here. I spoke at the first reading of this policy, as many others did also, on both sides. And it was very clear that there are 2 sides. You're either for this implementation of this policy or you're against it. As I listened to most people speak, including board members in favor of this policy, there seemed to be a common theme, a theme of victimizing transgender students. Also, several self-proclaimed Christians stating that Christian speakers were demonizing transgender students, not showing love or empathy towards them. And I'm here to say tonight that that's the furthest thing from the truth. The facts are, I heard most people against this policy speaking about protecting all the children from the various dangers this policy puts forth. Most of them mental, some physical. Not a single person spoke of accusing someone who is truly who has a struggle with their God-given identity being a perpetrator. We are concerned because you, the Board of Education, will be voting tonight on passing this reckless policy, which would be subjecting 100% of our children to possible mental or physical abuse. I say this because the fact is not one of you pro-policy board members has given us a single safeguard in place to protect all the children from becoming a true victim from any of the young men who would exploit this dangerous, poor planned policy to violate the purity of a young girl's mind or body. You cannot sit up there and tell us that this policy would not promote the danger I just mentioned. And as a parent of 5 children and did my best to install godly principles for my children, I am quite grieved to think that we, as EHT resident taxpayers, who voted to put you, each one of you, in office to look after the best interest of our children, that we could be here tonight and watch you board members vote finances over sanctity of our children. No matter what your religious or spiritual beliefs are or not, we will all stand before a holy God one day and will answer for the stances that we choose or not to choose here tonight. You all accepted the incredible responsibility of making decisions that will affect the rest of the lives of these children. Every child in the school system. Please check your hearts before you vote tonight and ask yourselves why you took this responsibility on. And I want to say one thing about Olivia Schaefer. She better enjoy her championships now because some little boy is going to take them from her. But I'm going to read scripture, Matthew. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it would be better that you hang a millstone around his neck and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. That's God's word. That's love. When you're not afraid to speak the truth to someone that you care enough about, to speak the truth in love, to save someone from making a wrong decision that affects their very soul. Let's do the right thing here tonight. Let's work together, all of us, using wisdom and discernment,
Thank you, sir.
putting all of our children first.
The three people behind you will not be speaking until the end of the evening. Thank you.
I do have a 12-year-old
Go ahead.
in the school system.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman and the rest of the school board, I realize you've been placed in a difficult situation to adhere to a state mandate at the threat of holding back millions of dollars in funding and serving the community that you were elected by. I first want to be clear that because I disagree with someone does not mean I hate them, nor am I unloving. On the contrary, saying no to someone can be a high expression of love. An example, saying no to someone that's about to drive after consuming too much alcohol, even to the point of taking their keys forcibly, is not only loving to them, but loves and protects others who might be potential victims by what is inherently based on the facts of bad choice. Feeling bad for them even while they yell at you, call you mean, thought you were my friend, you're horrible, all these things does not change the truth nor the facts. You know, I've heard several times here already that the other side were, angry or all these things. Everyone that spoke for this issue tonight, no one said a word. It was very quiet until someone spoke against it. And then there was all this chatter. And I heard someone say, oh, I don't feel loved. Why, they're mocking the person that's speaking. And it's this double standard. And it's just, it's so sad. We should be able to sit here and talk and view it. That's what free speech is all about. And then at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. I might disagree with some of you on this board, but I thank you for your service, man. I really do. I appreciate it, even if you disagree with me. I mean, that's what America was founded on, man. It's like, what is going on? According to the facts, those who make this choice to transgender, the change have a 40% higher suicide rate. I had a family member who became a homosexual who was loved by their family, their parents, and even my wife and I, and he died of AIDS, 54 years old. And on his deathbed, a few weeks before, he called us, we were able to lead him to the Lord. My wife was by his side. He repented of his sin, accepted Jesus Christ. He'll be in heaven and I'll see him again. And I thank God for that. So it's not about not loving, but it's looking at the facts. I didn't agree with his lifestyle or his choice, but I still loved him. And that's the thing. I'm looking at the facts. I did a lot of research here, Mr. Chairman, and I mean, page after page of regret of people who transgendered. I mean, these are the facts. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not pulling facts out of the air. 40% higher suicide rate, even those in communities that accepted them. And it says, after all the surgical procedures are completed, they have a 12-year lifespan. And that's horrible for any parent. If my child's making a choice that's going to shorten their lifespan or increase their suicide rate, I have to think there's something inherently wrong with the choice. Okay, not to mention the 26% of students have been sexually abused and they could be traumatized by this. The females who lose out on sports scholarship, those also the high rate of regret after attempting to change. One guy said that I was reading an article and he said, I just wish somebody would have told me the truth that I'm a man. And I say that with sadness in my heart.
Your time is up, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Those last three folks. All right, yes, go ahead.
Good evening, I'm Nora Langweiler, lifelong Atlantic County resident, current Egg Harbor Township resident, EHT high school graduate, sex educator, and social worker. First, I want to commend the board for the desire to create policies that are inclusive of all students regardless of their gender identity. I want to second the critiques from advocates of this policy. Concerns about outing students and ensuring the effectiveness of this policy are accurate and necessary. I also suggest an amendment to the disclosure phrasing to include only with the consent of the student, which will ensure that students who do not feel safe at home are not outed. At the meeting before last, I was greatly disturbed by what I saw and heard. Many in the room heckled those who are advocating for trans students, claiming their position was out of love, like Christ, or harping on how this might affect them. Now, I'm no theologian, but I just don't think Jesus would say, but what about me? Rejecting basic protections for some of our most marginalized children is patently, deliberately, and unnecessarily cruel. There is no data to support the idea that policies which affirm a child's gender will endanger any other child. There is, however, data that shows the harm that comes from denying children their own agency, as well as data that supports powerful healing that comes from creating space for children to be who they are. Just 25% of trans youth report that they always feel safe at school.
50% of trans youth say that they can never use the bathroom or locker room that matches their gender because they don't feel safe. And almost 50% of non-binary adolescents have attempted suicide. This is an epidemic. And that number drops significantly when families and communities accept them for who they are. Opposing this policy penalizes children because they don't fit into narrow ideas of what is acceptable and fosters a world in which youth feel they are not wanted. And I think it's important to note, most adolescents don't really think this is that big of a deal. For the most part, this generation is more progressive and understanding about the gender spectrum than any before. Keeping their peers from using the bathroom in which they feel comfortable is far from the top of the list of things they care about. I'd wager that most of them are more concerned about being murdered in a mass shooting than assaulted by one of their trans classmates. One of those things happen frequently, the other not at all. I'll leave you to decide which. The civil rights being discussed tonight are not abstract. Trans and non-binary people are community members, clergy, warehouse workers, teachers, your children's friends, and though you may not know it yet, your children. Creating a policy that affirms and protects trans youth is foundational to cultivating a safe environment for all students to explore their identity and come into themselves, which, I have to say, is the great work of childhood and adolescence. Thank you.
My name is Egg Harbor now, and I live in Galloway, New Jersey, and I have a 12-year-old son. And I don't have a fancy speech or anything. I didn't know I was going to be speaking tonight, but I want to thank you all very much for everything that you do. I know this is very difficult for you. I look at you and I realize that this is state mandated, and many of you probably fear for losing your jobs because you don't have a voice. So I feel sorry for you in many ways. I also feel sorry for my children, my 12-year-old who comes home and is so confused because he's pretty sure he's a boy, he likes girls, but in about 2 years from now, I'm pretty sure he may want to be a girl because of everything that you're teaching him through the school system. And can I tell you this, that binary, fluid, whatever all these pretty words mean, I don't understand them. None of us do. But instead of having partnership up there on the board, you need to have parentship up there on the board. Because the last time I looked, I was the mother of my child. He is my dependent. I pay taxes for him. I pay taxes for the school board. And you're not listening to the parents. Because if you were listening to the parents, we wouldn't be here today. And I'm tired of hearing about suicide, and I'm sorry, I don't mean any offense by that, but many people commit suicide every single day, and they're not gay. And many people get bullied, and they're not gay. I know, I went through a school system, and I was bullied very badly. I didn't kill myself over it. In fact, I lifted myself up and became a very good person over it, and I became compassionate towards others. And I'm very compassionate towards them. I have no ill will towards them, but do not teach my children what they are and what they're not, and give them psychological help and say, you know, we'll give you hormone drugs if this is how you feel today. The state will help you. And in the state, you can even call an attorney on the parents, I have read, if there's an issue between the parents and the kids. And I don't think parents realize this. And I want the parents out here to know that you have rights, that you can call the ACLU, not the ACLU, but J. Secular Family Council Policy, and you can sue the school. I want them to know that they can sue you if there's a problem between their child and a male walking into a bathroom and they're traumatized or raped. They need to know that they have rights, the parents, because you're not telling them. Somebody has to tell them, and you have rights. And yes, I believe in God, and I also believe in His Word, and if you've read it, then you know who's not going to heaven. Okay? So I don't need to say it. Do I have to say it? Please, 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 vote this down. Think about the future. You're opening Pandora's box. What's next? We might as well just cut off everything and all become just one thing and not recreate anymore. Not even have children, because that's where we're going. To hell in a handbasket.
Go ahead.
My name's Karen DeMcCallie. I live on Tremont Avenue. I have 4 children that have gone through the school system. This transgender policy actually goes over and above what is stated by the laws. It's supposed to enforce that it's supposed to enforce, so it may not be supported by the law. It violates EHT policy 9240, rights of parents, in which the first sentence states, the Board of Education recognizes that the parents or legal guardians of each child are ultimately responsible for the care and custody of that child. The board is not. Administration is not. The parents, legal guardians are. Just so in case you're confused. And Mr. Ellis, I'm sorry if we're keeping you up. And anybody else that is surfing the web or doing anything else, I apologize, but this is very important to everyone here. This leaves EHT community at risk for both financial and legal when there is legal action to the EHT transgender policy. The board members don't understand that the members, staff, and union have no right to have an open, confidential, secret conversation with any child without parent consent or being accompanied by a parent, which is exactly what your current policy said, that you can assign someone to have an open, confidential discussion with a child of any of these people that are here. Doesn't matter who you are, which side you want, which side you're on. You need to be able to trust that person, and I doubt very much that anybody's going to trust a person that they have not met. The board has no right to foster, which is in this current policy, which means encourage, promote, stimulate, nurture, contribute to, support, or cultivate understanding of gender identity and expression. It's not your job. It's not the school's job. Stick with all of the academics, scholar stuff, okay? It's not your job to promote that. It's not your job to discuss it with any child. If you are not telling a child that they should be discussing and they can trust their parents and their parents have their best interest at heart, because I don't see that anyone else would, then you're doing an injustice to the family. Only parents have the right to direct, impart religious, moral, ethical, and political beliefs to their children. No one else does. No administrator or designated person has that right. The policy is not supported.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Supposed
Thank you.
to insult.
Thank you.
You can't stand for parents. Anybody that does.
Good evening, thank you for letting me speak. I know I jumped in line late, and I'm not here to pit anyone against each other. I see and understand the belief systems going back and forth, but as the woman before me just said,
sir?
I'm sorry, Tom Biglin, retired police officer and social worker for 16 years, working with juveniles who have identified as transgender, gay, LGBTQ, and many of them in my programs have suffered from great trauma while growing up. And as I brought up last time, understanding the formative years of a child and the responsibilities parents have to the child during those years. I brought up the brainwave patterns, and I'm sure everyone ran home and studied neuroscience and epigenetics so we could be ready for this. Quantum physics, psychology, behavioral modification, because as I look through the policy, I see no change for the years 1 through 7, where the hypnagogic trance and the download with no filter is going on for our children, as people can identify however they want as they get to the age where the analytical skills have developed and a filter is there and critical thinking skills have developed. By pushing gender confusion, as I said last time, on to children at that young an age, can and most likely will cause psychological issues and potential mental issues, because you can tell a child they're Superman during those ages, and that child will believe that. And then, as I went on to explain, most adults then go on to live 95% of their subconscious lives come from those first 7 years of programming. This is studied science that has been peer-reviewed and proven with brain scans using things called the electroencephalogram. These are things that we can look up and understand and learn. We need to protect all of our children, no matter how they identify, religions, This is about protecting everyone. It's about morality, and it's about understanding the true objective definition of a morality is not causing harm to one another. A bullying policy just has to explain that. Parents need to explain that. Everyone has the right to be who they are, but no one has a right to force themselves onto others, let alone at that young of an age. I really hope that the board will take the time to understand that these sciences are real, they're provable, they are peer-reviewed and backed up. There are many studies that have been done that I can provide to you as a board, and to all the parents, and to all the transitioning kids. This is about, we're a human family. We need to figure out how to live with each other. And it's not by forcing one another on each other. So I just hope the board keeps that in mind, and everyone else does too. This is solvable, it really is, with love in our hearts. Again, thank you for your time.
I pray that our kids can one day not have to sit in a room and hear some of the things that we've heard and the banter that we've heard back and forth on both sides, on all sides. I just pray that our kids can grow up and say, you know what, we're different, that's okay, and just because someone's different than me, and I might be uncomfortable with that, it's still okay. So I'm a yes for this, and I'm a yes because I feel it's the right thing to do.
So I just wanted to say that over the past 2 years that I've been on the board, I think this is the most members of the community that I've seen attend a meeting, and I wish that we can see this, and it's great to have this much of a turnout. It's something that you're very passionate about, but I would like to see this much of a turnout when it comes to other things, other topics like curriculum and education and student achievement. So I hope that this support that you have right now continues throughout the rest of the years.
Skipper floor.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Oh, yeah, I know everybody's up. Good evening. You know, I said to myself, you know, and as my husband told me, don't say anything tonight. Just be quiet. He was like, 'cause it was just after the last couple meetings, he was like, what is going on? He was like, somebody gave me the side eye and the Wawa. A gentleman that did come to the meeting and spoke, I happened to see him. I know you're saying nobody asked me all this, but I'm getting to a point. Just stay with me. I get to the Wawa and I come in, and I'm with my son. We're going to church. Yes, I do go to church, and I am a born again Christian. And I love Jesus, and I don't deny the empire or politics. Good for you. So he looked at me and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "I remember you from the meeting," and he was very, at the meeting he was very upset. And as I said to my son, I said, "JR, I said, are there any breakfast sandwiches left?" And he said, "Oh, he said, this is before I said hello to him. He said, "Oh, you might want to check it. They only have a few left." And I turned around. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said from the meeting, and he just stared at me. And I said, "Thank you." I said, "JR, go thank him. He made sure you got your last breakfast sandwich." And the reason why I say that is because someone asked me too, how do you sleep at night having to make this decision on the board, especially if you've been the policy chairperson? I've been on the board 2 years, and I remember when they said, "Oh, Tamika, we want to make you the chairperson of the policy committee." I said to myself, that's interesting. I just started in the first year and I'm already the chairperson of the policy committee. Wow, okay, I really wanted to go into curriculum and curriculum committee because I'm a school principal. I'm a principal of an elementary school. And I said, well, okay. I said, all right, well, hey, we'll go for it, And then this particular policy came up. And I said, this one is gonna be controversial. People will question me, they'll question my values, they'll question my Christianity, they'll question who I am as a person, they'll do all of that. And someone said, I don't know, I couldn't do it if I were you. And I said, it's okay because I was the person that was put in the spot for this time. And as I sit in this room and I look around, my eyes I was looking around to see who was here. Some people have been here from the beginning to the end. But I keep looking over in this corner over here. This is the corner I've been looking at. I've been looking at the kids. And I do sleep well at night. I do pray for EHT, because this is my hometown, from here, went to the high school class of '93. And you couldn't tell me years ago when I used to be an administrator in this building, in this particular building. So I've been a student here, I'm a parent here, I've been an employee here, and now I'm a board member. So I do feel like I have a 360 view of EHT, but I will tell you this, some of the things that I've saw, heard, seen, and had people say and do, it was a shocker to me. It was really a shocker, and it just kind of like divided people. It was so similar to an election, not a board election, to a presidential election. It was similar to that, how people got divided over who they voted for and who they didn't vote for. And at the end of the day, if you live in Egg Harbor Township and you're a part of this community, years ago, it wasn't that about transgenders moving into EHT. That wasn't the particular group of people that were in the spotlight, or homosexuals, or anyone in the LGBT community. Years ago, the talk was about, there's a lot of different people of color, different people of different religions moving into our community. EHT looked different. That's the word people would use. The demographics are changing. So, regardless of whether I agree or disagree with someone's lifestyle, the students that come to our school, they're our students. They're our students. And if you're an educator, or if you have children, whether they're blind, whatever a child is, you have a love for a child. And I do identify with groups of people that are treated differently because they're different. I can't hide my skin color. I can't hide it. It comes with me wherever I go. I can't hide my gender. It comes with me wherever I go. And I totally understand, I actually really do understand both sides. But what's sitting in the middle, or both sides sitting in the middle, are children. Transgender, non-transgender, kids, regardless of whatever they identify, whatever. The kids are in the middle, we're on the sides, the kids are in the middle. And I love all of y'all. And if somebody, listen, if you don't talk to me after this, if you don't vote for me after this, it's okay, because that's what makes America great. You have the right to vote, do, and feel how you want. But and one person said we have to coexist together. That's what we're all trying to do. But coexisting together doesn't mean that I'm gonna be like you and you're gonna be like me. America is not a melting pot. America is a salad bowl. You have lettuce, you have carrots, you have onions, you have cucumbers, you have tomatoes, and they all have a unique flavor. And what makes us America is a salad dressing. Nope, you don't change your flavor, you're who you are. But the salad dressing is what makes us America, and the salad dressing is what makes us EHT. I don't foresee certain groups of people leaving, coming, or going. And that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
And the roll call.
Mrs. Byrd? Yes. Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
No to 16.2, excuse me, I'm sorry, 11.2, and yes to the other policies.
Thank you. Mrs. Summer?
Yes.
Mrs. Salagi?
No to 11.2, yes to the rest.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis?
Abstain.
And Mr. Delbar?
Yes. Moving on to new business. I need a motion to approve